I am Serena, a 27-year-old woman. I just got married recently. Back home, my father and brother treated me terribly. But it wasn't just me. My mother also suffered at their hands. We women were treated like slaves. If my father or brother commanded something, we had to act immediately. We'd be scolded for being slow if we didn't move fast enough. It was like this since I was little.
Why are you so slow? Just get it done already.
Yes, Dad.
You can't even do this much and you're in elementary school? What a disgrace. That's why women are useless.
Don't say that, Dad.
Shut up and be quiet. I don't want to be called Dad by you.
I've been doing chores since preschool, but it got worse once I started elementary school. While my father and brother relaxed, my mother and I were constantly busy. Whenever they wanted a drink, we had to bring it right away. Even in the depth of winter, if they wanted ice cream, we had to go out to the convenience store in the cold. So my mother and I were always exhausted. My mother felt sorry for me and cried all the time.
I'm sorry. It's because I'm weak that they treat you like this, Serena.
No, Mom.
Serena, you have to leave this house someday. Stand on your own 2 feet and run away from your dad and brother.
But what about you, Mom?
I'll be fine, as long as you're happy, Serena.
When I reached 10th grade, I thought about going to college, but my father said women didn't need education. He had a very old-fashioned mindset, thinking a high school diploma was enough for a woman. But I was in college prep school, and all my friends were planning on going to college. I loved studying, and I was determined to go to college. Despite this, my father wouldn't allow it. But at that time, my mother stood up against my father. I'd never seen her so determined.
She excels at her studies. That's why I'm going to let her go to college. What? Are you challenging me? How many times do I have to say that women don't need an education? What good will it do when all she'll be doing is cooking once she's married?
An education will never go to waste. It'll come in handy even after she's married and has kids.
Then do what you want, but I'm not paying for the tuition.
Fine, then I'll take care of it. My mother had some savings and she used it to support my college education. I got accepted into my first choice university, a private one. I felt guilty about the expense, but thanks to that, I met my husband. I had always been afraid of men, but he changed that for me. He was so kind when we met at our college club. He was always cheerful and could make anyone laugh. Having grown up impressed by my father and brother, for the first time, I felt something positive towards a man. I started to think that I wouldn't mind dating someone like him, but I couldn't bring myself to confess and I kept my feelings hidden. In the end, we didn't date during our college years. After graduation, I ran into him at a reunion. He had changed a lot and had become a sophisticated city man. My family home was in New York, but in a rural area, and I had lived in an apartment during my university years. After graduation, I had been working in Manhattan, where I was known as Plain Jane at my company. I wasn't sure if a plain Jane like me was suitable to be with him, but he asked me to come over, so I did. We reminisced about our old club days and ended up dating. After a year and a half, he formally proposed, and that's how we got married. After creating my own family, I was worried about my mother back at my old home. I felt sick thinking she was still being abused by my father and brother. Hello, Mom. How are you doing these days?
I'm fine. More importantly, are you doing okay, Serena?
I'm fine, really. Danny helps out with the chores. He's probably even a better cook than me.
Oh, is that so? I guess he got that from his father, who's a chef, right?
Maybe. Don't worry about me, okay? And you need to take care of yourself, Mom.
Yes, I got it.
Mom said this in her usual kind voice, but somehow I had a bad feeling. I had the hunch she was in trouble, due to my father and brother's horrible treatment. They despised us for being women, but my mother in particular was targeted. It was because of the scar on her face. She had an accident before I was born, which left a prominent scar. My father would call it hideous and disgusting, so my mom always covered the right side of her face with her hair where the scar was. It was heartbreaking that my mother, who got injured defending my father, was being called ugly. It was clear my father didn't appreciate her at all. Even my brother was cruel, saying things like, "Don't come to the open house, you're disgusting." I thought those were things one should never say, even if they are family. One day my husband and I were enjoying a happy hour. In the heat of midsummer, we were sipping chilled beer while nibbling on snacks. Suddenly, our home doorbell rang. It was just before 9 p.m. and we wondered who it could be at such an hour. Stepping out with my husband, we found Mom standing there.
"Oh, Danny. Mother-in-law, what brings you here at this hour?"
"Could you lend me $20? I'm sorry for bothering you, Serena and Danny." $20 is fine, but what happened?
I thought I'd head to a motel or something.
A motel? What are you planning to do there now? As long as I can get some sleep, that's enough. What? I was kicked out of the house by your dad and his lot. I don't have any money. I froze in shock. When I asked her to tell me more, the details were beyond horrific. After dinner that day, Mom had been doing the usual housework. That's when Dad and brother started demanding more alcohol and ice cream. So Mom left the house with just her coin purse and smartphone. But when she got home, the door was locked from the inside. Unlock the door, I brought the drinks and stuff.
Just leave it there. We don't need you anymore.
What?
Drop whatever you bought and disappear. A worthless wife like you.
And that left my mom completely lost. She had used up almost all of her coins and couldn't even afford a taxi. So she had to walk all the way to our house.
That's what happened? That's awful.
Maybe I'm just useless now.
Hey, Serena, let's live together with your mother.
Really? Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't mind. We have extra rooms. She can use one.
But I can't be in the way of newlyweds.
It's all right. I consider you like my own mother.
Thank you. Oh, my mom burst into tears, sobbing. She must have been touched by my husband's kindness, something she was likely unaccustomed to. My husband, having lost his mother at a young age, was a hard worker raised by his chef father. He graduated from college on a scholarship, so he understands people's pain. Having such a husband, I realized how lucky I am. He was the polar opposite of my father and brother. From then on, we started our life as a three. Whenever we came home, Mom always had a hot meal ready for us. You don't have to go to all the trouble. Danny and I can do housework too. It's all right. I want to do this. Thank you, Mom.
I feel a bit guilty.
After a comforting home-cooked meal from Mom, I was relaxing when the doorbell rang. At the door were my father and older brother.
You're here after all. How dare you send me a text like that? What's with, I don't want to be with you anymore, he bellowed.
So what? I simply told you how I felt, she retorted.
Oh, you're pretty bold. When did you start acting so high and mighty? He sneered.
You were the one who told me to leave, right? So I'm saying, let's get a divorce, she shrugged.
Well, I don't really need an old lady like you around, but if we're divorcing, pay me alimony, he demanded.
Excuse me? My father was demanding alimony from my mother in case of a divorce. I wondered what had happened.
Isn't that young guy I saw you with your new boyfriend? That's cheating, isn't it? He accused.
No, it isn't, she responded.
Oh, you two seem pretty close, though.
We didn't do anything strange. I had no idea that my mother had been with a younger man. I started to panic. Was my mother really having an affair? If she was, it would be disadvantageous for her since she and my father were not yet divorced. If my father was right, she might get sued. So I glanced at my mother, but she just winked at me. It must mean everything will be okay.
You dirty, tainted old woman. You won't be able to survive on your own once we divorce. Ha ha! Go ahead. Pay me and live your pitiful life, he scorned.
I don't mind if we divorce. I have a job, she stated.
Huh?
The young man you saw me with is a business partner of mine. He's a very talented and wonderful person.
Job? But you've always been a housewife.
I've been working from home, even without a computer. A smartphone is all I need. I occasionally meet him for discussions.
So that was it.
So I have $50,000 in my bank. Even if I divorce you, there won't be any problem. My father was dumbfounded. My brother had the same shocked expression. Neither my father nor my brother knew my mother had been working. But I was the only one who knew. She had told me secretly. She had said to keep it a secret from Dad and my brother, probably fearing they would depend on her financially.
Oh, I see. Let's start over. Come back home.
My father said this as soon as he found out about the money, but my mother coldly replied, Why would I? I'm not coming back. I'll divorce you.
Huh? Why? I'm offering to live with you.
Why are you so condescending? I'm not weak like before. I don't need someone like you, cheating man.
Eh?
At the words cheating man coming from my mother, my father seemed shocked. My brother standing next to him was also surprised. Didn't you say something to my business partner, Emma? She asked.
Well,
he's dating a woman younger than Serena. It's repulsive, downright disgusting.
No, you've got it all wrong. It's a misunderstanding.
What's there to misunderstand? Can you say the same after looking at this photo? My mother was showing a picture she had found on her phone. It was a picture of my father being cozy with a young woman named Emma. They seemed too close, and their faces were almost touching. I found myself thinking how gross this old man was. It was shocking to think that this pervert was my father. But how did my mother find out about the connection between my father and Emma, one of her business associates? There was a reason. One day she had gone to a cafe for a face-to-face meeting with Emma. Though they also met online, they made a point to meet in person once a month. During that meeting, my mother noticed the ring on Emma's finger. Apparently, it looked exactly like one my mother had bought for herself years ago. So she complimented Emma on her ring. Emma replied, "Thank you. My boyfriend, an older gentleman, gave it to me. It's secondhand, but I love it because it's quite valuable." This made my mother suspect that my father might have given Emma the ring. This diamond and emerald ring was custom made for my mother, so there was no other like it in the world. Given that it was an original design, my mother suspected that my father had given it to his mistress, Emma. When she returned home and opened her jewelry box, she discovered the ring was indeed missing. That was when my mother was convinced. "So I'll be asking for compensation for the affair, and we're getting a divorce."
What? Who's going to do all the housework then?
"Really? You and your son can handle it, can't you?" Both my father and brother were hopeless at domestic chores. Being unable to do anything, they had dumped everything on us women. So they would be in trouble if my mother left. I couldn't help wondering why they had chased my mother out in the first place. That's when I decided to intervene. "If you're going to be in trouble without Mom, why did you chase her away in the first place?"
That was just to spite the mistress.
"What?
I just wanted the other woman to suffer. I'm not the bad guy here."
You're still saying that? You're the one who cheated. You're the worst. So disgusting. I had never been able to stand up to my father or brother before, but things are different now. I had a strong ally in my husband, and my mother had become stronger. I had to become stronger too to protect myself, my husband, and my mother. Feeling this way naturally, I was able to stand up to my father. My brother was crying and whining, saying he didn't know what to do next. Apparently, he can't even make an omelet. The only dishes he could make were bacon and eggs and salad. I wondered if those even counted as cooking. If they were so incapable of cooking, they could just live on instant ramen for the rest of their lives. My mother wasn't a housekeeper or a slave. Why should she have to come home cheerfully after being cheated on? My father and brother were out of their minds, I could tell. They couldn't hold a proper conversation. "Well then, since it's decided, we need to get prepared. I have to find a good lawyer."
Hold on.
I don't care anymore. I'm definitely getting a divorce, be it mediation or a trial, it doesn't matter. I've suffered emotional distress from you, and I might be able to get a lot of compensation money.
No way, I don't want that.
My brother was smirking at this point. Even if a divorce occurs, the parent-child relationship won't end. So he said he would still be able to inherit when our mother passed away. But it didn't turn out that way. "Gaston, I'm not leaving you any inheritance. After all, you've been so insulting towards me. I won't let someone like that inherit anything. Did you know? If I specify in my will, I can prevent the distribution of my assets to you." Once again, my brother's eyes widened in surprise. It seemed he never thought his constant insults could backfire this badly. He probably didn't realize that this was the outcome of heaping profound insults on the person from whom he was to inherit. He cried out loud, almost too loudly. We lived in an apartment and his cries echoed down the hallways. I thought it might disturb the neighbors. A man from next door, who looked kind of scary, whom we tried not to interact with, came out due to the noise. He yelled at my father and brother, and they scampered off like they were running for their lives. Then, my mother divorced my father. It was a tough battle, but she managed to secure a hefty compensation. She cut off all ties with Emma, my father's mistress. After that, my father seemed totally downcast. My brother too, upon realizing he won't inherit anything, spent every day in gloom. My father's work suffered and he was gradually pushed into less significant roles. Finally, he voluntarily quit. My brother, who was a freelancer, couldn't make ends meet with his income alone. He reached out to me for help, but I ignored him. Of course, I blocked his calls and messages. After that, my mother moved to a different apartment. She said she felt guilty staying with us. My husband felt lonely, but I thought some distance might be a good thing. Even now, we three occasionally have dinner together, and it's truly enjoyable. But soon, we will become 4. That's because I am pregnant. I have no intention of letting my child meet their grandfather. I can't bear the thought of letting such a disgusting man hold my child. From now on, for my husband, my mother, and my child, I plan to become a stronger woman.